Hey, babes. So I am doing this tarot and anxiety video today. Sorry that it got moved from Monday. I didn't know when it was going to feel right to drop in, but here we are. It is time. So thank you for your patience if you have been waiting and excited to watch this. I am excited to offer these pieces of how I work with anxiety through the tarot and kind of the intersections of the way that tarot in general can be really supportive for mental health and grounding and all of that. So there's kind of four main pieces. I think there's a lot more than that, but there were four that were really jumping out at me that I want to dive into and share with you all. And then a few cards that I pulled that wanted to be talked about kind of in this context of like working with them and working with anxiety. Now, the first thing that I want to name is that a big part of my work with anxiety and the tarot, hi, namaste, is the work of Lindsay Mack from Tarot for the Wild Soul. She is one of my teachers, and I've been super grateful, particularly, for the kind of lineage that has been established in that of working with the tarot in a way that is present moment focused and not so much concerned with fortune telling. It's a really big shift to make. And I think a lot of the tarot community is like moving in that direction. And there's so much power that can be found in that. So just to name that, because I'm super grateful for her work, kind of laying the foundation for how I have grown to work with tarot and anxiety as well. So, okay, so yeah, the four pieces of this that I think are really important. First of all, is that tarot can be a physical grounding tool. I don't know about you all, but tarot is a card, like having something really physical and tangible there can be an incredibly powerful thing to like just grab onto, like so many things that we start off with when we're learning how to work with anxiety is to ground, right? To get into our physical bodies. And so there is something actually physical and tangible about going to a deck, going to a card and rooting into that. So I highly recommend for those of you that are working with the tarot and curious about it, like start with when your hands touch the deck. Actually, even before that, start with when your sit bones land on the ground or in the chair, wherever you are, like start by dropping into your body. Let it be a physical experience. I think so much of the beauty of tarot is in the esoteric nature of it, is in the spiritual nature of it, but acknowledging the physicality can also be super powerful. Okay. As far as this question that popped up from the deck here, do you think spirituality can kill anxiety? I don't think about the work that we're doing with anxiety about killing it. I think about it much more as learning to work with it and manage it. Anxiety is something that I have totally owned as just being a part of my life, and actually one that has brought me a lot of really huge empowerment and a lot of like the best like guidance that I have gotten has been from anxiety. So I do think that spirituality can be a huge way of working with it though, which is a big crux of my work. So that's the first thing, is letting it be physical, tangible, looking at the colors, the textures, feeling into the cards themselves. Okay. So beautiful. And then the second piece of it is the energies of the cards themselves, the energies of the archetypes that are showing up there. And when we get to these three cards in a moment, I'll dive into this a little bit more. But I think what is so helpful about it is that when we are dropping into our connection with our spirit guides, when we are dropping into our connection with the cards, with the images that we're seeing on the cards, it has this ability to remind us of parts of ourselves that perhaps we have forgotten, to remind us of support systems that perhaps we have moved away from over time, So it can be this really immense, not moved away from, but just forgotten, like that we've set aside. So these cards can reawaken in us these really supportive energies. The third thing that I think is super powerful with tarot and anxiety is that it can call us into the bigger picture of things. I don't know about you all, but for so much of like the thought processes of anxiety for me, it is, like all in the nitty gritty details of like, how am I going to do something that feels like super immense, but is all like wrapped up in these like individual tasks, this thing and this thing and this thing, and this feeling of it kind of piling up in a way that is really, ego driven. And I don't say that as like, ego overconfident, bad sort of thing, but like driven by my sense of my personality, my sense of like this being me, this human being, being fully me. And so tarot pulls us into a reminder that we are a part of a larger system, that the cosmos is here to be supportive for us, that spirit is here to be supportive of us, that we are human beings, but we are also souls in these human bodies. So it's an incredibly powerful way to just zoom out, to get a bigger picture, I think some of the cards in the tarot, like there are times when they are like kind of working with the nitty gritty, especially the minor arcana cards. Like they can actually go in there and be supportive for the like things on our to-do list, the sense of them piling up. And then there's some cards that come in and it's just like, whew, that's right. Like what's happening in the greater context here? What's happening in my soul journey right now? Like how can I zoom out a little bit from these things that I'm super stressed out about and actually see how they play into the bigger picture? And this is where we can really start to do the work of anxiety alchemy with the tarot, because we can see the ways that what we are hyper focusing on, it might be guiding us or perhaps shooting out, red flags of alarms of like, what is it that actually matters right now? Is it what you are spending your time doing? Is it what you are focusing on? Depending on the cards that you're pulling in the space that you're in, I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong answer to it. It's just that these cards can be so powerful in helping us to connect, right? And then the fourth piece of things is that it keeps us connected to our cycles and the constant sense of change, I've gone through seasons with cards where it feels like I'm pulling the same ones all the time. And there can be this sense of like, okay, like I'm still in this, right? And then there's sometimes it's like, I pull a card and it's almost like an hour later, like I'm kind of out of that cycle, like I'm into something different. And this is really helpful to remember in the context of anxiety, that anxiety is an emotion, and emotions are energy in motion. They are bound to change. And so if we can loosen up a little bit of our fear that actually holds us in that constricted place of uncertainty and wanting to change how we're feeling right now, and say like, okay, like I am here in this moment. This is the energy that's here right now. This is the energy that I can work with right now. And I know that eventually this is going to shift into something new and different. And when we pull a card and it's this, like whether it's the same card or a different card, like there's the reminder that our timing of everything is divinely guided. That timing is divinely guided. That we, in our like linear perception of things, can get very caught up in like, oh, I've been in this space for too long. I've been feeling this emotion for too long. I'm stuck in it, But sometimes, sometimes seasons last an hour, sometimes seasons last a year or multiple years, and everything in between. And the tarot is really helpful for reminding us, whether we're in a space of change or we're in a space of just staying in that energy for a little while, that there is so much variety and richness to life that we don't have to feel like this is all that's ever going to be, So the three cards that I pulled that wanted to be talked about today, the first is the Ace of Pentacles. Now the Ace of Pentacles in the context of anxiety is a really powerful, like, there's something here that wants to be nourished and planted. If I was feeling super anxious and I went to my deck and I pulled the Ace of Pentacles, it would pull me into a curiosity around what I might be being asked to create that could be a support system, could be a root system for working with this anxiety, whether it's a physical practice or, a new thing to like add into my routine. Aces in general are like they're a seed of something, and we kind of have to reach out and choose like to plant it, to nourish it, to grow throw it, you know? So with the Ace of Pentacles, that's how I would kind of work with it. But I think the overall energy of the Ace of Pentacles is this reminder like, hey, there's something here. Like, this isn't just an uncomfortable place right now. Like, within this discomfort, there's something here. There's something rich. The second card that wanted to be talked about is the Nine of Wands, which I absolutely adore this card. It's such an interesting reminder when it comes to working with anxiety and uncomfortable emotions in general, because the Nine of Wands is a card that like asks us to stay steady with the work, but learn how to find a rhythm of effort and ease, and effort and ease, and effort and ease. And so with anxiety, if I was coming to my deck and I was feeling super anxious and I pulled this card, it would be like, hey, is there actually a way that you can work in some like short little breaks throughout your day today? That could be just like little moments of checking in, like little places of like finding a different rhythm than maybe you normally would. You know, I know one of my like major coping mechanisms when I'm anxious is to just like dive all in and block out the rest of the world and block out my experience of myself and my emotions, because that feels safer to be in that space of distraction. And Nine of Wands is like, okay, there's value in that, like, and maybe stay the course, you know, like, don't stop entirely doing the work that you are meant to be doing, but can you learn how to rest in that? Can you learn how to take breaks within that, you know? And then the last card that wanted to be talked about is the King of Swords. The King of Swords is a hugely powerful energy around truth. It is this truth that comes in and says like, no, clarity. Like, we are going to cut through all of this BS. Now, what's so interesting with the King of Swords, when I pull this card and I'm feeling anxious, usually it's because I've got some seriously ruminating circular thoughts that I am spiraling out. And this King of Swords energy comes in to remind me that there is a part of me underneath all of that that is 100% of the time always aligned with my truth. And that if I can kind of dig past the stories a little bit to get to that place of truth, it's going to point the way. It's going to provide that eagle eye view, that big picture. This is definitely a big picture card of like, what is happening here on a grander scale, and letting me tune in and drop into that. So okay, I would love to hear in the comments how all of this landed for you all. And I am just super grateful to have the space in this community. Feel free to send me questions. I'm always here for you. A couple of quick reminders. Next Thursday, February 11th, we're going to have new moon alchemy. So we have a new moon in Aquarius. It's going to be an incredibly rich time. I'm going to focus this on intention setting around radical authenticity, around owning the parts of ourselves that are going to actually propel us powerfully into the next phase of our society. So I'm super excited about that. And then 2 days later on February 13th, and for the next 4 weeks working with this whole lunar cycle, starting with that new moon in Aquarius, is anxiety alchemy. And so if this seems really interesting to you, that you want to work more with anxiety, spirituality, and embodiment, which is such a huge piece of what I do, check out the anxiety alchemy link in my bio. This is going to be like a 4-week intensive immersion to just change the way that we relate to anxiety so that it can actually become a guide and a gift rather than something that we dread. So much love to you all. I'll talk to you soon.